Hey, so this is unscripted, just letting you know. So, how good this is going to be is up for debate. So, a while back ago, Paramount released a trailer for Sonic the Hedgehog, the movie. Now, nobody liked it. Nobody liked the way it looked, in particular, specifically in regards to sort of the 3D animation and the 3D model of Sonic the Hedgehog himself. So everybody, all together just panned the movie and just no, we don't want this. And if you've been keeping up with that, you probably already know that on Twitter, I believe it was, in a few places, they announced that they would be remaking the design for Sonic in all upcoming content. Now, the new trailer just hit right now. And they fixed him. He looks significantly better. Everybody can agree on that. And a lot of people were celebrating that their voices were heard, that they fixed the old Sonic, and that they actually did something for once when it comes to a video game movie. And for a lot of people, that's really big. But with that in mind, there's something I have to talk about, and that's sort of a quick note. Where you should really consider what that actually means for most studios. So in places like Vancouver, Canada, Vancouver is actually a pretty big one. A lot of the studios actually come from there. And if I recall, one of the studios a long time ago went bankrupt. And there's this movie that you can find on YouTube called Life After Pi. Now, there may have been some differences in how studios are running things now, but from my understanding, and something that I've always known to be true, is that what happens is that companies that animate and make the models are usually kind of having a bidding war with themselves. So essentially, they're always bidding sort of for who can do the most work with the least amount of money. You can treat this kind of in similar to other things where they'll go out of country a lot of the time to get the cheapest amount of work they can. Now, in these bidding wars, it's a fixed amount of money that they give these studios to make the requests. And most 3D animators, from my recollection, are under contract. So what ends up happening is if they make a really big change, let's say, for instance, that they take a model of Sonic the Hedgehog, they completely remake it, redo all the animations and all the scenes involving it. Nobody in the team that was meant to do the 3D work gets paid over time in most cases. So what ends up happening is, though this is a success for the people, this ends up being a really big failure for practically everybody who worked on it. Now what happens is usually the 3D artists get their things approved by somebody higher up in the pipeline. And that person is the person who decides what goes through and what doesn't. So a lot of these people might be huge Sonic the Hedgehog fans who really didn't like how this Sonic looked in the old trailer and never would have wanted it, but just because somebody hadn't wanted it that way and they were the director, that's what got made. So when the movie got panned in the way that it did, there's very much a really high likelihood, actually, that what ended up occurring was they didn't get payment for the overtime that this probably cost. Now, even if they did, it is something that more people need to know about. It's not a success when a movie gets changed, because even though you're enjoying it and you're feeling heard, they don't properly pay the 3D modelers for overtime. Now, there are some 3D artists out there who say that this fix might be very easy. I always am skeptical about that kind of thing when it comes to an entire movie. It's just sort of the 3D artist talking about sort of the sword and shield for Pokemon kind of thing. They are saying that, but they also want views, and they sort of want your attention for that. So it's really important that you keep this in mind, that when you're watching something like the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, all the extra work that goes into changing these elements. And this is a common practice. Usually the director will want something changed over and over and over again. And again, they don't get paid. So they end up crunching, they end up working way longer hours than what's healthy. And even though they're industry standard, most of these people go to school for this, they aren't getting paid for the extra time that they commit into it, and they don't get paid for things like crunches. Now, some studios are different, especially smaller studios may have different rules, but this is something that I've known about for a while and was kind of one of the things that always kind of stopped me from being particularly interested in the idea of working with certain studios. I went to school for 3D modeling for a little bit, and I'll be going back to school, and this was kind of the first bit of information that I looked into. Now, to keep this in mind when you sort of watch these things, and just remember that with things like, Sausage Party was a good example where a lot of artists weren't getting credited. But if you look into the history of 3D modeling and animation and VFX in relation to movies, there's a bunch of disrespect. There's a bunch of things wrong with it. So I do recommend, if you haven't seen Life After Pi, please watch it. Even if the industry has started to change, do yourself a favor, and when you want something like this changed, try and consider what this kind of means, because ideally in places like the USA or Canada, more films should be made in-house. So if you want to become a 3D artist of some kind, it should be something you should be able to do. It's a short little thing. This is my first time doing something unscripted and really doing a video like this at all, so I hope it's alright. Thank you.